I'm
Ready?
going to depart.
Okay, I'm going to start. All right, we've started. This is super unofficial, so Max, if you want to.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Welcome to the Aftershow, the Polecat Aftershow for 116. I thought that for today we would sort of take a more intellectual article and try. Sorry?
No, I said, Huffington Post. Go ahead.
Well, look, here's the deal. The reason why I'm calling it intellectual is because it's a very long, it's very thought out, and it's very critical of the whole Evergreen State College controversy. You know, obviously Brett Weinstein and everything that he's been involved in. And it's especially important because it was written by Michael Zimmerman, who was a part of the faculty up until recently when all this shit went down. So it takes a while for us to go through. I figured what might be best is if somebody read it, and then when somebody has a thought that they want to share, because I'm sure that everybody in here is going to have something to say about what's in this article, they sort of speak out and we discuss it. So I actually have to go in 5 minutes, so I figure I'll start the reading and then somebody else will take over when I have to go.
Yeah.
All right.
Where's the link?
Here, I'll drop it in the thing for you.
All right. So can I start?
Yep.
All right. So the Evergreen State College implosion. Are there lessons to be learned? In recent months, the Evergreen State College has been promoted as the archetypal example of the problems associated with political correctness run amok. Videos of students and faculty members using foul language and abusing fellow community members have gone viral. Stills of students wielding baseball bats and acting as a vigilante police force can be found on all corners of the internet. Images of scores of armed members of the Washington State Patrol, clad in riot gear, patrolling campus offer a frightening look at what happens when campus administrators lose control of a college. This looks like something right out of V for Vendetta. With a bit of distance, it is well worth looking back and asking what can be learned from the situation. Were conditions at Evergreen so idiosyncratic that any knowledge gleaned has only local value, or might Evergreen's situation provide us with a broader perspective on the current state of higher education? I believe the latter is the case, and that therefore it is worth exploring two closely linked facets of the Evergreen experience: the cause of the uproar and campus leadership. The story that's being promoted everywhere is that one faculty member's resistance to Evergreen's 2017 incarnation of its day of absence is at the center of the turmoil. In 2017, instead of people of color voluntarily absenting themselves from campus for a day to demonstrate the importance they play in the community, as had been the case for many years, white individuals were encouraged to leave campus. In mid-March, Professor Brett Weinstein argued that there is a huge difference between a group of coalition deciding to voluntarily absent themselves from a shared space in order to highlight their vital and underappreciated roles, the theme of the Douglas Turner Award play, Day of Absence, as well as the recent Women's Day walkout, and a group or coalition encouraging another group to go away. The first is a forceful call to consciousness, which is, of course, crippling to the logic of oppression. The second is a show of force and an act of oppression in and of itself. Before we go on, I just have to ask, this is something I've always been confused about. I was always under the impression that the Jewish people considered themselves separate from Caucasian or white people. Now, being simple-minded me, I always just assumed it didn't matter and they were both the same, but I don't know. Maybe somebody can correct me on this.
I mean, I don't claim to be an expert on the subject. I always thought that it was weird that Judaism was often referred to in terms of it both being a religion and a race. Maybe there's because the thing is that it's about the Semitic people, and that like represents a certain type of person, but most of them tend to be white or Middle Eastern or some blend or something. So I don't know. I think that most of the time Jews differentiate themselves from other white people mainly because of their Semitic roots and their religion, but they are probably not that dissimilar. And then when other races that are a lot more distinct, like Asians and blacks, compare themselves, then Jews will be happy throwing themselves in with white people, or they don't fight about it or raise a fuss when blacks say, no, you're just white people. I think that that might be it, and I don't know though.
Yeah, whenever it comes to race, it's always some sort of a power. Well, when it comes to issues like this, it's always sort of a power game regarding race. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say there's another wrinkle too, in that some Jews consider themselves Jewish, but they're secular, or they're even atheist, but they're still Jewish. So there's a lot of weirdness going on within that sort of thing.
I thought the real Jews were black.
Original Jews,
Oh, you
yes,
mean
you're
right.
right. That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
What was that? Was that the stapler?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that was good. Okay, moving on. The implication has been that Professor Weinstein's comments were so outlandishly racist that people caring about social justice had to rise up and call for his dismissal from his faculty position. If that were the case, however, the question must be asked why it took until the 23rd of May, over 2 months after his note was disseminated, for the protest to occur. The day of absence itself occurred over 1 month prior to the protest. And of course, all of this ignores the fact that Professor Weinstein's note was simply and strongly presenting an alternative perspective to the structure proposed for the day of absence, while affirming the power and importance of the original configuration as a way of combating racism. So, yeah, just in the future, social justice warriors, if you want to do stuff like this, make sure that you're treading carefully, especially when it comes to any people who are Jewish on your campus, because if you ever tell them to not go somewhere or to go somewhere per some sort of, what's the word? Just socially constructive directive, never a good idea. Just don't do it. Moving on. The reality.
Wasn't he yelled at the day of the day of absence?
Yeah.
Wasn't there some altercations, but it didn't escalate?
Dana?
Yeah, he was yelled at.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was a bunch of people walked to his classroom. He walked out and he started talking to them and doing so in a very calm way.
Yeah, but there wasn't this big stuff until a month later. Okay. I forgot the timeline.
Yeah, it's all the days seem to sort of be rolling into one another, especially with all the stupidity that we've been seeing lately.
Although he himself was a social justice warrior, that sort of he kind of created that situation.
He was a part of the problem.
Yeah. Definitely.
But then he got red-pilled by the problem.
Well,
ironically enough.
Yeah, I don't think he swallowed it completely.
No. He did not. He's
basically was purple pilled, but even then, I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
I mean, he's become aware of how dangerous it can be. Like when he was on Rogan, he was talking about it, how like people have been threatening his family, and he's had to move and all this sort of stuff. So
why don't they threaten other people than me?
Right? Yeah. No, I think he kind of realizes the potential danger of these sorts of situations down. I think it's probably started him on a journey of realization.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, he was, when I saw him on the Rubin Report, he was talking about how, he was like preparing for a revolution or something like that has to happen. And he's like a biology teacher or something, like
biology.
Yeah.
Evolutionary biology, I think.
I'm not glad this happened to him or to anyone for that matter, but I'm just pointing out that the situation that was created at that college, he was a part of. He's like Dr. Frankenstein making the monster, and then when it turns on him, I don't really have a whole lot of pity, but I'm hoping that he learns something, but I don't expect that he will, because one thing I've learned about ideologues is that this stuff is extremely difficult to shake out of them. Like, I mean, I'll say this too. This is
like Joss Whedon. Perfect.
Yeah, like Joss Whedon, like Will Wheaton. I mean, these guys have been under attack by feminists online, but they're going to be feminists anyway. Or look at this, and I know this has been talked about a lot, maybe even beaten to death a little bit. But look at Lacey Green. All right, Lacey Green has put out a tearful video of her accepting Sargon's apology, and I mean, I'm glad that happened, right? But Lacey Green herself has not apologized for the shitty things that she or her fans have done. She hasn't said anything about that. She has literally said that basically people who vote Republican are rape apologists, which is really fucked up, okay? More than getting called a bitch online or something.
Hashtag
So-
rape
You
by
know,
Lacey.
I don't think Sargon had to apologize for anything in my book.
I don't think he didn't really attack her too much, but I think we're gonna get a little too far off topic if we keep talking about this.
The point I'm making
Yeah.
is that ideologues are difficult to. They don't change their minds very quickly. Even the ones that
No.
we think are changing their minds, they're likely not. Like Lacey has basically repeatedly said she is a dyed-in-the-wool feminist and she will not stop being one. And I don't entirely disagree. I don't think that she's anywhere near looking at her ideology in the way that she probably should, in the same way that Cassie J had, and it took Cassie 3 years to basically come to her conclusions, and she had to constantly challenge it with a documentary. And I can't say that most people. I would say that most people don't have the endurance to do what Cassie J did to get to that point. So,
Well, and another thing too is most people are comfortable in that reflexive nature of the thing that they've learned. It's like this is habit, this is reflex, and they're not assertive, and they don't look at it like, oh well, I need to change this thing until people start really pointing it out to them, or it becomes a problem within their everyday life where it's like, oh wait, people keep telling me I'm an asshole, maybe I'm an asshole, but it's like until somebody really kind of calls them out on it, like it's just going to be a reflex. It's going to be that habit because I mean, you're talking about Lacey. She's been doing this for how long now? Been doing videos on YouTube for like 8 to 10 years or something like that. I mean, she's been doing this fucking for a long fucking time. So it's not going to change overnight.
nope.
It's not like all of a sudden it's going to be like, aha, this revelation. It's like, yeah, she likes dick, but she still has to work through these things and kind of understand her place in her own, her what is it? Her castle that she's created, and the problems within that, so, and the cracks and such. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it definitely won't be like an aha moment when it finally happens. It'll be a lot like Walker and Conrad at the end of Spec Ops: The Line, where it's like, your eyes are opening for the first time.
right, yeah.
It hurts, doesn't it? Sorry, go ahead, Mr. 03.
I was just going to say that the Frankenstein monster comparison is really awesome because you can imagine Dr. Frankenstein creating a non-binary, genderless kind of monster.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna read the next little bit and then I have to drop out. But thanks for having me as always, guys. So the reality of what occurred is far more complex and, in fact, far more insidious than the caricature presented in most media reports. No shit. Regardless of what some would have us believe, the exclusion of white people from campus was not a mandate. No one was required to. Oh my God. No one was required to leave. But the pressure for white individuals to leave campus to demonstrate that they were good allies to people of color was very real. And many students, faculty and staff alike, were confused by the structure of the day. God, they're not even logical enough to get the logical consistencies of their day of advocacy in line. How could they not be confused? Consider parts of just 3 of many notes that were sent to all faculty and staff members prior to the day of absence by supporters of the event. I feel strongly about honoring the call for white identified people to absent themselves from campus. White identified, that's great. This change to DOA/DOP, Day of Absence, Day of Presence this year, where allies travel off campus and POC, people of color, stay on campus, is beautiful. I think the role reversal of this year's DOA is brilliant in that it encourages Evergreen's white population to take accountability for their active participation in unlearning racial prejudice in a way that's staying on campus. When I read a little bit further ahead than other people do, so I roll my eyes before I can finish the sentence. So why was Professor Weinstein the epicenter of the student protest, and why did it occur when it did, so long after he offered his critique of the Day of Absence? It's because these people are fucking mouth breathers, and until you shine a light in their eyes so that they can follow it or put a carrot in front of them, they're not going to do jack shit.
Right, until the professors bitched about it, the students didn't bitch about it.
Yeah. And I'll just read this last paragraph, and I gotta go. The answer to the first question revolves around the unique role that Professor Weinstein has played on campus during his time on the faculty. As much as it might like to think of itself as an open and tolerant environment, Evergreen isn't very accepting of voices that question the Evergreen orthodoxy. While this might be seen as a terribly ironic situation, for a liberal arts college to find itself in, this has been the Evergreen reality for quite some time, and the result is that a large number of faculty members, perhaps the majority of them, simply absent themselves from most discussions. Professor Weinstein is not one of those who have opted for self-censorship. He has always been willing to ask questions, to point out what he sees as flaws in ideas, and to offer suggestions for improvement. For that reason, I'll always be happy to hear what he says and listen to him talk. So, Scott, do you want to take this over, or Brian?
I can do it.
All right, thanks, man. Have a good night.
All right, Max. Thanks for
Good
coming.
night. Take care, bud.
All right. He has played that role to a great extent and to the frustration of many this academic year, a year almost completely focused on the twin concepts of equality and inclusion on campus. Indeed, George Bridges, Evergreen's relatively new president, reformulated a college-wide equity council and provided them with a very wide charge. The group consisted of 28 members, 6 of whom were current faculty members, and they set to work to outline a strategic equity plan. The council created a plan without any public input and scheduled a meeting in the middle of November to present it to the campus community, having announced that it had already received the blessing of President Bridges. The plan, as presented, was built on a statistical analysis of retention, achievement, and graduation data, and proposed to make significant changes to faculty hiring practices as well as to the structure of the curriculum. The meeting offered no opportunity for open discussion of the plan and was structured as an opportunity to celebrate the plan's creation. Wow. Patting yourselves on the back without even looking at what you have made. Building on the region's Salish culture. What is Salish culture? Let's find out. I want to know. The indigenous group known as the Bitterroot Salish of Montana and their English. So I guess this is like a Native American.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, First People. Okay. So okay, building on the
So they're
region.
appropriating
Salish
culture. That's interesting.
Yeah, the meeting concluded with attendees being asked to metaphorically climb into a canoe to embark on a journey for equity. Lord.
That is cultural appropriation to the extreme.
Oh my God.
Why didn't they put kimonos on too while they're at it?
So
Sombreros.
dumb. This is a university. This is what people pay for. This is university.
This is what taxpayers fund when it's a public
$80,000.
university.
Yes.
Wow.
They should get their money back.
They should close the school.
Nice. The implication was that if people failed to board the canoe, they would be left behind. Indeed, the sentiment was expressed by some that if you're unwilling to get on board, perhaps Evergreen was not the place you should be working. Professor Weinstein responded in an email by raising some questions, but more importantly, calling for an open discussion of the ideas, strategies, and directions outlined in the plan. He did so carefully and politely, never once criticizing any individual. Consider as an example the following from one of Professor Weinstein's early emails. So here's one of his emails. Maybe it isn't mine to say because the canoe isn't from my culture, but this canoe metaphor felt like it was appropriated for the ironic purpose of cloaking an unstoppable train. You're either on board or you're not. You can attempt to derail the proposal or you can accept where the train is going. From what I've read, I do not believe this proposal will function to the net benefit of Evergreen students of color in the present or in the future. Whatever type of vehicle it is, I hope we can find a way to discuss this proposal on its merits before it moves farther down the line. Well, I wonder how many people from the Salish tribe were actually going to your school, or if you just weren't like, it's like another virtue signal, like within a virtue signal. They're going to do some virtue signaling, and then they're going to do virtue signaling to point out it's
Virtue
meta.
signal Inception.
It's meta virtue signaling, and
It's
nobody
inception
cares.
signaling.
It doesn't actually do anything. Yeah, virtueception.
Yep.
All right. In response, he was branded a racist and an obstructionist. He was branded a racist.
Of course.
He accused
God.
them of appropriating, which I guess is something that I would hate. I would hate to make that argument because it's not an argument. But yeah, you still get branded a racist and obstructionist. A faculty member who sat on the Equity Council explicitly called him a racist in 2 different faculty meetings. When Professor Weinstein asked for an opportunity to defend himself, he was told that a faculty meeting was not at the appropriate venue for such a defense. When he asked what the appropriate venue was, he was told that no such venue existed because he was a racist.
Of course.
That's
Oh my
racist.
Like even within, and these guys are all progressives. They're all trying to figure out who the racists are that aren't themselves, and now they're doing it to each other. This is
You
what
know what?
happens.
The left
You know,
eating itself.
We've talked about this so many times about how this is shutdown language.
They're all
This is taking,
kulaks.
this is taking the idea of shutdown language to the logical conclusion of saying that there is no forum. We have shut you down. We've pulled the racist card out. We've used it. We pulled the bigot card, and we've used it, and therefore that's the end of the discussion. That's perfect. That's fucking beautiful. I mean, this is their whole fucking plan in the first place. This isn't about discussion. This is about subjugation. It's about being told to shut the fuck up because you're a white man and you're a fucking racist and you've been told. So fucking don't make me tell you again. You've already got one black eye.
Pretty
There
much.
you go. Fucking Christ. This is fucking disgusting.
Yeah. The worst part
This is the norm.
This is academia. This is the norm.
Yep.
All
Not the exception. This is not.
right.
Holy crap, dude.
Uh,
It's fucking amazing.
What? Fireworks?
Oh, just no. This is just amazing. How
the story.
How it's just right there. There is no place for this. There is no
for
venue,
sure.
no place because we already labeled you a racist or a bigot or whatever it is. It's fucking brilliant. Oh my god.
All right.
Wow.
You know,
Neither- Go ahead.
you know these people would love Lenin and Stalin.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're Marxists.
Yeah.
Fucking so, you know.
They're basically commies.
Yeah, that's their playbook.
Neither the president nor the interim provost interceded to make it clear that leveling such charges against a fellow faculty member was unacceptable within the college community. When Professor Weinstein spoke privately with both of these administrators about the incidents, they both acknowledged the inappropriateness of the behavior, but each said that it was the responsibility of the other to do something about it. Neither administrator took any public action in response. Imagine my shock.
Not me.
That
Not
no one
me.
wants to do their job, but they want to complain about white people. But even that tells only part of the story. As mentioned above, the equity strategic plan was built on a statistical foundation. When the validity of that foundation was called into question, including by a robust analysis by an Evergreen alum currently in graduate school, the same faculty member who publicly called Professor Weinstein a racist began attacking scientists, generally claiming that their reliance on data was dismissive of the concerns of students. Science is racist. President Bridges, upon being presented with the alum's statistical critique, promised a response, but none has been forthcoming. Despite all of this, Professor Weinstein continued to call for open discussion of the strategic plan with no response other than personal attacks on him being ratcheted up. It became clear why Professor Weinstein's appeal for dialogue drew such enmity when the same faculty member who publicly called him a racist was reported to have said that the Equity Council did not want such discussion because the plan might not survive such scrutiny intact.
Well, no shit. When you have such a shit plan that you don't want to talk about it, like
Right.
But you still want to believe in it. It's like
because you've invested so much time, like you're just not going to give up. That's the problem.
hard. It was hard. Just let us do it. A number of senior administrators voiced the same fear, with one going so far as to say that expecting a public review of the plan after it had been approved by the Equity Council, which had so many people of color in it, was an example of white supremacy.
Oh, of course it is.
A lot of white people, white supremacy. Wow.
I think it's time for Plan B.
What, contraceptives?
Yeah.
No, they're new.
What up?
Don't reproduce. Although Professor Weinstein had a fair number of colleagues supporting him behind the scenes, he was the main voice heard on campus. This is also really annoying, I've noticed, where people, like, you have to secretively be in support of someone because they're guilty of wrongthink. And nobody thinks that there's something really, really wrong here. That you have to, like, secretly support people. Hey, man, I know that you're probably going to lose, you could lose your job and you can get into a lot of trouble, but I want you to know I agree with you, but don't tell anybody I agree with you because I don't want to be in the position that you're in and I don't have the balls to stand by you out in the open and try to fight this thing with you.
Yeah,
This happens
they
all the
don't see
time
how
and it pisses me
insidious
off.
This is. Yeah, the fact
Yes.
they don't see how insidious this is and
Exactly.
actually stand up to it. It's fucking boggling. It's amazing.
Imagine if kind of the Xavier Institute work like that. Okay, Cyclops, I fully support you with your fight against the Sentinels, but I cannot really risk my career.
yeah, exactly.
But I'm real good friends with fucking what's his name? I forgot his name now. The guy that made the Sentinels.
Magneto.
No. Trask.
Boulevard Trask.
Boulevard
I'm
Trask.
real good friends with Boulevard Trask, and I don't want to find it out because he might reprogram him to come after me next. And, you can understand, right?
Oh, man, I got your back, man.
But yeah, I got you. It's cool. It's
like
cool. I got you.
Like if you need a ride somewhere, like to borrow some money or something, just let me know. As long as we can meet in a secret place.
Right. I got I can break that $1 so you can get the soda out of the fucking can thing there, and you fucking
exactly. It's fucking sad. Pisses me off.
It's pathetic.
Although Professor Weinstein had a fair number of the Weinstein Company. I whenever I read that, I just think of the producers, the Weinsteins.
Right. From the Matrix
Anyway,
and everything else.
Yeah.
I see Weinstein because it's the German pronunciation, and that's what I'm used to reading.
It might be.
E-I is I. I-E is E.
Yeah. Maybe it's Weinstein. Although Professor Weinstein had a fair number of colleagues supporting him behind the scenes, his was the main voice heard on campus. His voice was neither strident nor impolite, but it was relentless. And its dominant message was a plea for discussion. On the few occasions when he raised any specific objections to the plan, he did so by arguing that he thought the proposed action would actually harm rather than help students of color. In an environment where you are either on the equity canoe or you are lost at sea, Professor Weinstein's voice was seen by many as disruptive that needed to be a disruptive force that needed to be silenced, which explains why he became the center of attention once the protests began. But none of that explains why the protests occurred when they did. For that, we need to go back to the beginning of the 2016-17 academic year. Evergreen's academic year begins with an all-campus convocation. That event includes a talk by the author of a book all incoming students read over the summer. This year, a number of students attempted to take over convocation and refused to permit the speaker to address the campus community. President Bridges managed to convince the students that they'd have a chance to be heard after the college's invited guest spoke. Afterwards, the president sent out a note to the full campus community apologizing for his actions, saying that he should have let the students speak when they wanted, that their voices were every bit as important as that of the author of the common read.
No.
No.
You know what I'm gonna do right now? Did you guys ever see Superman Returns? Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
Brilliant fucking
Wrong!
That's what I'm gonna do. Fucking this is fucking ridiculous that they are fucking what this reminds
Pandering.
me of? No, not just pandering, but here's the thing. It's even more insidious than that. It's the same thing that happened when Bernie let those two women
Oh,
at his
Jesus
thing.
Christ.
This is the same thing. You're talking about a failure in leadership. You're talking about, a college is not a home. It's not your fucking podium. It's not your pulpit. It's not your place to fucking start making demands. You are there to learn. You are by the very nature of the institution, you are subservient. You don't make the rules. You go there and abide by the rules. But when they let things like this happen, this is, logically what happened. The fucking crazy shit started popping off. And they
Wait,
started
Scott,
fucking
are you saying? Scott, are you saying college is an intellectual space?
Wait, what? You broke up. What was that?
Are you saying college is an intellectual space?
It doesn't seem so much anymore, but yeah.
But it's about creating a home here.
Yeah,
no,
it's not about making an intellectual space. It's not.
No, this is crazy though. This is, like I said though, this is very much like what happened when Bernie let those two women take over his little fucking speaking engagement there. It's like, that's not how this works. Yeah, his rally. Thank you. That's not how college works. This is ridiculous that academia has turned into this, like, I guess in this case it is kind of pandering. They're like, oh yeah, don't worry, you can do whatever you want. Get the fuck out of here with this shit, man.
Then there's Mizzou.
Oh my god, this is crazy. This is absolutely insanity. I just don't even get it.
Reminds me of Mizzou and Yale.
Yeah.
And Yale.
Yeah.
Just
I
a
don't know
bunch
if
of.
Yale was even as bad as Mizzou, though. I mean, that was a fucking clusterfuck. Too. I mean, Yale was. I mean, it was dumb, but I don't think it rose to the levels of just absolute just stupid.
With people like standing in
Get me
traffic.
some muscle over here.
All these
Yeah.
like super rich kids, rich black kids throwing themselves in traffic because they want to be victims. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They had nothing to lose but their chains because they got everything else. All right. Moving on.
Oh wait, they're gonna take their necklaces away. Oh no.
Yeah.
But chain.
All right.
The chains. You know.
Where was I?
Fast forward to the day.
Fast forward to
Fast
the following day. Fast forward to the day following the 2016 presidential election. How did I know? How did I know that was the catalyst?
There you go.
I
The Trump
knew it.
picture.
Like, I think that if you go to every university that is dominated by such social justice warriors, which I believe is honestly like 85% of all of them, and you look at like how crazy they got leading up to the election and then what happened after it, you will see a fucking immediate like just brain melting, narcissistic screeching, just like insane fest. That's like the moment everyone
celebrities
lost
crying.
it. The moment they lost it, trash cans were burned, Starbuckses were trashed, and it's the election. I knew that they were going to mention it, but anyway, let's see what they say. Fast forward to the day following the 2016 presidential election.
Brian,
Yeah.
don't forget Miley Cyrus cried.
Yes. Wait, isn't that the same person who was crying about leaving Britney alone? Wasn't that Miley?
Oh,
Anyway,
Chris Crocker.
Chris Crocker. Throwback. 2 campus events were scheduled for that day: a board of trustees meeting and the dedication of a newly remodeled and renamed Purse Hall. Students upset by the election surrounded the trustees and berated them for their racist attitudes. The meeting was canceled, and hours later, the building dedication was similarly disrupted, despite the fact that Purse Hall, or maybe Percy Hall, was named for Evergreen's immediately preceding president, an African-American who served as president for 15 years. Despite the chaos associated with both events, no students were brought up on any disciplinary charges. Fast forward to the installation of Evergreen's new police chief, Stacey Brown, herself a graduate of Evergreen, early in winter quarter. This event, too, was disrupted by students, and during the disruption, the vice president for student affairs was pushed and a microphone was wrestled from her hands. She was almost knocked to the ground by 2 students. Because of the way the vice president was treated, the disciplinary proceedings commenced against the 2 students who pushed her. No other student faced disciplinary consequences for this disruption. You know what I think
consequences are?
You know what I think they should do with colleges?
What's that?
I think that, especially the ones that are publicly funded, in particular the ones that are publicly funded, I think that what they should do is when a student graduates from their college, you check back with that student in about 4 years to see how they're doing professionally. If most of your graduates are failures, then the college doesn't get any money, or they get less money. I think that the amount colleges need to be held to some account with the success of their students, because, and I'm not putting it all on them, because I know that like parenting and upbringing has a lot to do with it. But the thing is, right now, colleges want students to go to their classes and pay their crazy ass fees and take out all them crazy ass loans so they can play these crazy ass student tuitions. But they don't want to actually, like, it doesn't matter what they do afterwards. They don't care about that. And I've been to enough colleges to know that, especially the ones that are driven by profit, but this applies to all of them, they only care about getting you in and signing up. They don't actually care whether or not you succeed. I mean, it's nice if you succeed because they get to use it to sell you to more students, but they're not actually accountable anymore. And I think that if we started doing that, then maybe they would change their approach. Maybe there wouldn't be gender studies classes, because those do not result in jobs. They just don't, unless you're like going to politics or journalism, which not everyone wants to do.
And journalism is done.
That's my thinking. Oh yeah, fucking A, it is. I mean, I hope it does. I saw it get wrestled to the ground in a GIF, but I'm not sure that that's actually the end of journalism, despite what everyone thought. Okay.
you want to help with that, you also need to get the government out of the business of backing up the loans, the student loans.
Absolutely. We need to get the state out of involved with the financing of colleges and the loans process. Yes. I mean, we basically need to recognize that college is not for everybody, and that's not a bad thing, because it does not determine your worth as a person.
You know what? I was thinking about this the other night, actually, and somebody was asking me, they're like, well, what's your big plan for fixing things? Oh, yeah, actually, you actually commented on the tweet, Brian. You actually made a few suggestions, because I'd said,
I remember
the thing about how, maybe we start working towards, educating on people on the ideas of trade schools and becoming, craftsmen,
Absolutely.
craftswomen,
people. There's a huge demand, and it makes a lot of money.
Exactly. But but that's the thing, though. Our society is so driven towards the 15 minutes of fame and being an actor, being a, whatever, this, that, or the other, and not actually doing anything, and not actually being creative or being skillful in any trade or any kind of thing that is actually, quantifiable physically. And, if we could change the way people think in those regards, as far as like the value of these sorts of things, not just for being like an electrician that makes a lot of fucking money, or whatever it is, but like there's so many other venues and avenues, like that are in short supply. But that's the problem, though. Everybody wants to be famous, everybody wants to be a YouTuber or this or that or the other. They want to have a big name on Twitter and have lots of followers. They don't care about doing any actual work. And because people don't, I think, and God, this sounds so fucking stupid and contrived, but people don't understand the value of money. They don't understand the value of time and the value of doing things. So yeah, I think I think we've got a generation of fucking soft motherfuckers out there. Basically, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Entitled brats that think that the government is going to save them for everything.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, hating the government. It's like they hate the government, and they also think it's the only hope they have. I don't know how you do both of those things, but they do. Okay, so
if a government's in debt, it can't help you.
Well, no, I mean, well, sure it can. Just prints more money. Yeah, that always works.
The day, and just like Zimbabwe, they solved their problem with their $10 trillion Zimbabwe bills.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. Fast forward to the week prior to the protest. There was an ongoing, mostly online discussion among students about limiting a program to be taught following the... There was an ongoing, mostly online discussion among students about limiting a program to be taught the following fall to students of color. One student objected, asking how would it appear if the reverse were ever to be the case. Seems logical. If a program were limited to only white students, for example. The program in question was to be taught by the faculty member who publicly called Professor Weinstein a racist. Stein, it is Stein. Thank you, Real Raven, for that correction. The student raising...
I remember it as Weinstein. Am I in the wrong universe?
It's supposed to be Stein.
Stein, yes. The student raising the objection received a good deal of abuse, and then he claimed he was physically confronted in the cafeteria. This student, himself a student of color, went to the campus police department to file a complaint against the two students he said assaulted him. The police began...
He was confronted, and then it turned into
it turned to assault. Yes,
the confrontation was an actual assault.
It escalated.
Words are violence. Words are violence.
Words are violence. Well, just like confronting somebody with ideas is violence. I used to be the kind of person that really, 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 really hated confrontation. I was extremely socially anxious. I was that kind of person, and I think that when I was like that, and yeah, I was a big ass pussy. I'm just putting it out there. That's what it was. Okay. When I was like that, was a teenager in high school, maybe 15 years old, I probably would have considered people confronting me about something as like traumatic and scary. I would have thought of it that way. And I'm glad that I sort of trained myself out of that way of thinking when I started working a job. That's basically what did it. I got a job and I had to deal with people, and some of them were assholes. And it took a little time, but I learned that it made me better for it. It's like, how do Shaolin monks train their bodies to be able to break through, wooden boards and shit? Well, they harden over time, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm just pointing out, that I experienced that. And I guess in a way, if this person has never had to deal with confrontations, okay, they would probably perceive someone confronting them as an assault, even though obviously it isn't.
Right.
I'm not sympathizing. I'm empathizing, but that doesn't mean I agree. So I think that this is still, you're wrong. So.
Well, it does say physically confronted.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. Like walking into the room and sitting at their table could be considered a physical confrontation because you walked over and you physically stood in their presence.
Yeah, you're in the same physical space as them. It's like you were occupying their area.
Yeah, it's hard to say that that's actually an assault, but let's find out. So he filed a complaint against 2 students that assaulted him. The police began an investigation later that evening, and one of the students interrogated was the leader of the protest that soon followed. Given that one of the complaints raised by the protesters was that the police were targeting certain individuals, black trans students in particular, why would that be? I don't know. And given, I mean, unless like the black trans gang element in this Evergreen State College is particularly ruthless, I don't.
Wouldn't surprise me.
The Sharks and the Jets or something like. Okay, so moving on. Black trans students.
That there's enough of them that they actually have a gang.
Yeah, I know.
Like, holy shit! I mean, to be like that is a very specific thing.
Yes.
I'm
guessing that there are probably very few, unless the academic teachings on gender have actually gotten people to believe that they're trans or include themselves as part of it, even though they're really not.
There you go.
So there is that.
Good point.
Broaden the definition of what trans is, and all of a sudden you find a whole lot more trans people that you didn't notice were there. Okay, so
and they might just be cross-dressers.
Yeah, or just people who are just saying that they're non-binary, and that throws them in with the lot, and they do it because it gets them more attention. I mean, why wouldn't you? Like there could be, if you convince a girl who likes to wear jeans and dress casual that she's actually a demi boy, you can convince her at a young enough age that her tomboyish behavior is not just being a tomboy, which is not a new gender or anything. But if you convince her that that's what it is, then yeah, she's going to basically say, yeah, I'm a demi boy because I like to wear baseball caps and I like to play sports. Well, I'm sorry, but no, that you're still a girl, goddammit.
I must confess something.
Go on.
I am a trans dinosaur.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay. I won't question it because that would be bigotry. Moving on. Given that the students accused of pushing the vice president and accosting the student in the cafeteria were black trans individuals, so apparently it seems reasonable to assume that the protests were in part designed to deflect unwanted attention for possibly inappropriate actions. It's also worth exploring the climate in which the Evergreen student protesters were immersed, a climate that encouraged their behavior. A series of anecdotes will make my point. Oh, anecdotes are okay. Okay, let's see. Let's go with the anecdotes. Those are always great in place of statistics.
Those are the best.
Yeah. I love anecdotes. My favorite kind of evidence.
Yeah, it's the best.
Let's begin with the faculty member who publicly called Professor Stein a racist on the 14th of November. Don't write on 14 November. What the fuck does that mean? 2 days prior.
You say November 14th.
Or just do that. 2 days prior to the meeting at which the Equity Council's strategic plan was released, she made the following post on Facebook. Oh, all caps, because that's how you know it's an SJW. Seriously, just be quiet. Only appointed/approved whites can speak, and only when spoken to. When that post, and there's no end quote. God damn it. You are just fucking up. You're a professor. When that post, a post by a member of the Equity Council, was brought to the attention of President Bridges, he opted to do nothing publicly. I opt to do nothing publicly. What? They're black trans students, Pippi, not trans black. They're 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 not Sean Kings and Rachel Dolezals. They're I don't know, transitioning people of color. Okay.
If we just swap the color, it's seriously, just be quiet. Only appointed, approved blacks can speak,
And only when
and
spoken.
only when spoken to.
Yeah.
Or just say women or Jews or
Any group of people, except for white people. You can do that with them. They're okay because of colonialism. An even more disturbing Facebook post by this faculty member generated no response from the administration, but actually gained defenders from the faculty ranks. The post was in response to a note written by Professor Weinstein's wife, Heather Haying. Why don't you have his name? Oh, progressives. Also a faculty member at Evergreen. Professor Weinstein was warned by Evergreen's police chief to stay away from campus because his safety could not be guaranteed. And after administrators were held hostage in their offices by a student group, the interim provost wrote a note saying that if anyone felt unsafe, they should come and speak with him or one of the deans. Professor Haying thought this note was both insensitive and disingenuous, since obviously her husband was unsafe in the eyes of the police chief and he was advised against setting foot on campus. The faculty member responded to this note by posting this on Facebook. Why are we going with Facebook posts? What the fuck? Quote, "Oh Lord, could some white women at Evergreen come and collect Heather Haying's racist ass? Jesus." Wow.
Maybe it's Jesus.
No, it's it.
This motherfucker right here.
Yeah, it could be Jesus. It could be the signature. Then it would be more like, "Oh Lord, could some white women at Evergreen come and collect Heather Haying's racist ass? Jesus." Administratively, Evergreen has had an uncomfortable relationship with the concept of free speech. This is just the most troubling thing, especially for a liberal arts college and even more so for a public institution. Wait a minute. Let's go back here. Evergreen has had an uncomfortable relationship with the concept of free speech. That's already fucked up. And then it says, especially for a liberal arts college, as though that's unusual. Actually, liberal arts colleges are the ones that attack free speech the most these days. And even more so
they
for a
have the
public
students,
institution.
because they have the indoctrinated students to back them up.
Yes. They're the worst about free speech. Colleges are the worst. And public
Especially
ones
opioids.
even more so. A year and a half ago, long before the current protest, the vice president for student affairs and another senior administrator were going around campus removing posters they felt would make people uncomfortable. The posters did neither incited violence nor constituted hate speech. But in the eyes of those administrators, they deserve to be censored.
That it should have censored, not censured. Censured would be. It said. I'm saying that the person who wrote this article can't English.
Oh, it's censored. Yeah, I figured it should have been.
Censured is like you publicly, or like a group of people admonishing somebody because you're a douchebag because you did this thing or whatever.
Oh my God. The response came made by the vice president for student affairs when student protesters were roaming the campus armed with baseball bats and tasers, made it clear that differences of opinion could be frightening. She wrote to students living in the residence halls in part. And here's what she wrote. "We are aware of a small group of students coordinating a community patrol of housing in campus." Fucking brown shirts. "We acknowledge and understand."
Look at that picture.
I know. We acknowledge and understand the fear and concerns that are motivating these actions. We also understand that these students are seeking to provide an alternative source of safety from external entities as well as those community members.
Wait, who the fuck wrote this?
Alternative forms of safety?
Wait, this was a vice president? Jesus fucking... No, that's not alternative form of safety. That's intimidation.
Yeah, wait, you literally just said alternative forms of safety.
Yeah.
That's what this article...
An alternative source of safety.
No, that's what the vice president of this, I guess, some sort of student affairs or res life or something. Yeah, student affairs said. Yeah,
right,
these vice presidents of deans and student affairs and shit are the worst people for colleges.
Right. So a bunch of people walking around with tasers and baseball bats in a threatening manner is an alternative form of safety. That's interesting because I have this thing. It's called a fist, and when I punch you in the face with it, that's an alternative form of communication.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I have a pistol.
Burn it. Just burn it down. God damn.
Alt safe.
Fuck. Alt
Name my band. That's what I think of when I see this picture.
I just want to say that the picture, those guys look like thugs from a Final Fight game.
Yeah,
Maybe they're village people.
they're like the people that you beat up in one of those old beat 'em ups from the 80s. Like they're the gang members with the crazy hair. I wonder.
A picture of Grimace and the rest of those fucking.
Yeah. Oh,
You got Poison, you got Hugo, so
There's Lucio, fucking Grimace.
yeah, right. The
Fucking,
Grimace. Oh.
It's the Muppet Show.
What?
It's the Muppet Show.
The Muppet Show.
Bunch of fucking Muppets.
and I didn't want to see that one chick's nipple, so there's that.
Oh, there's a nipple? What? Nipple? Oh,
Well, strategically covered
So
by a
The
black
Bush
tank top.
one.
I said name my band because Lawrence Southern shared this photo a while back. Sorry, there's more fireworks going off, and she asked for names for the band, and people posted some. I'll tell you some of the good ones. No Direction. The Triggly Bunch. The Unfuckables.
oh yeah.
Oh, that's great.
The Insane Pronoun Posse.
Hey.
The Generation X. 30 Seconds to Safe Space. Shiver Me Triggers.
There's some more freedom for you.
The Unemployables.
Oh, geez.
That's an accurate statement, though.
It's not wrong.
Tears for Queers.
Yeah.
The Intersex Pistols.
That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. 16 legs and one black tit. Let me see.
Well, an obvious one would be the Batty Fags.
Yeah. Fatty Wat featuring the Wage Gap. Somebody just wrote Nickelback. Oh man, oppression, obsession. Yeah, so you get it. Cancer, Panic at the Cisco, Children of Sodom, Rage Against the Patriarchy, the Menstruals, the Pussy Hat Dolls, and so on. Moving on.
The Backdoor Boys.
Oh man! So if you guys have any good band names, put them in. So yeah, I like No Directions. Neats on the Streets, the Free Bleeds. All right, so yes, she went on asking students to put down their baseball bats. Community patrols can be a useful tool for helping people feel safe. However, the use of bats or similar instruments is not productive. But simply giving credence to the idea that the presence of fellow students not involved in the campus protest could warrant a community patrol is troubling. An event that occurred the week following the student protest provides yet another example of what free speech means on the Evergreen campus, which is nothing. Unrelated to any of the activities that had taken place, a small group of Christian fundamentalists came to campus. Oh, shit. As they do every year, and as they do on virtually every campus. And they began to read Bible verses. The following paragraph comes from a note to the Vice President for Student Affairs sent to the campus community, praising the community's response to these visitors. Quote, during the counter demonstration, many of the students who engaged did so in reasonable ways to respond to the speech of the demonstrators that they found objectionable and hurtful. What were the reasonable ways students responded? The videos of the incident show students surrounding those preaching and shouting at them, making it impossible for anyone to hear what they were saying. I would have liked to have known what the Christian fundamentalists were reading from the Bible so I could find out whether or not it's actually objectionable. And I'm sorry about the fireworks again. There's nothing I can do about it. But unfortunately, I guess we won't know the answer to that because they drown them out.
Yeah,
The
feminists are never considerate. Feminists are never considerate, are they?
Shocking.
No, obviously not. Okay. Sorry, I just had a piece of chocolate. Piece of candy. During the counter demonstration, I think I already read that, right? Yeah. The administrative message from all this is very clear. Freedom of speech is only for speech with which you agree, and aggressively silencing those with whom you disagree is fair game. Given all of this, can there be any surprise that students acted as extremely as they did? Given their role models, can there be any surprise that they refused to let President Bridges speak even when they asked him a direct question? Given that, very early in the process, President Bridges used foul language when discussing Professor Weinstein with students, and then immediately said, quote, "Don't put this on tape." Can there be any surprise that students use similar language in response? Given that President Bridges praised them for their courage for demonstrating, capitulated to virtually all of their demands, and promised that no one would be punished for their behavior, can there be any surprise that the protesters continue to make additional demands? Of course they would. Make no mistake about it.
What's the thing? Give them an inch, they want a foot. Give them a foot, they'll take a yard. Give them a yard, take a mile, something like that. Whatever it is.
Yeah. That's the thing about social justice and feminism and stuff like that. It doesn't have an end.
No,
like
it
doesn't. It doesn't.
Is always on fucking wheels.
Yeah. Hold on. I gotta send Allison a thing.
The end is probably the destruction of society.
Mm.
Going back to the tribal days.
Well, actually, you know, Danny, you're probably not wrong because no, being very serious, seriously for a moment, because you're talking about people who want to be in charge of everything, who are ill-equipped to do anything, because they would, if they actually were in charge, they would be completely handcuffed by their own rules. Nothing would get accomplished, and everything would grind to a fucking halt. Society would stop. Because, oh, well, we can't do that because it's a microaggression, but we need to, because if we don't do this, then these things are going to break down. Well, I'm sorry, we just can't do it. You know, we gotta take into account the marginalization of dragonkin. We don't want to make them feel bad about how, you know, their wings aren't big enough and God doesn't love them enough. We got to think about that. So everything would grind to a fucking halt because there would be so many little grains of sand that they would keep getting fucking stuck on. Like the wheels of progress would be ground to a halt by a single grain of sand every fucking moment they try to move forward.
I have a lot of respect for Dragonkin. After all, they saved Skyrim.
Yes.
Skyrim.
I am Dragonborn.
Dovahkiin.
There you go.
Their pronouns
for
are first row and da.
Yes, that's right. First row and da. Okay, where was I? Okay, so make no mistake about it. Overt racism and institutional racism are serious problems. See that? Institutional racism are serious problems. This person is not far off from the students that he claims to criticize. This is where that comes from. You get people buying into this idea that there is like an institutional force that's keeping people down. You're going to make people into professional victims and activists that are fighting against something that is not there. It's a phantom. There's no institutional racism. There's individual racism, sure, but there's no institutional racism. At least there's not enough evidence for it. Let's put it that way. You can't just go around talking about that. But anyway, this guy, as I was saying, he still buys into this shit for the most part. So problems that need to be addressed, but meaningful corrections can only occur in response to real problems. When, as has been the case on the Evergreen campus, requests for examples of racism are met with the charge that such requests are in and of themselves racist, it is unlikely that any progress will be made.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah, getting falsely accused of being a racist actually does not create meaningful discussion. What do you fucking know?
That is
You silence people by calling them racist, which is basically the purpose of calling somebody a racist is to do nothing but shut them up. That's the only thing it does. I even see this in the skeptic community itself. I'm not entirely surprised, but I see it. And we're on a bit of a tangent. Well, hold on, I got to talk to Allison here.
She's so needy.
All right. Anyway, I know. Just leave me alone. I'm doing an after show. I noticed this in the skeptic community. You guys see like this like kerfuffle coming up with Rage After Storm?
Oh,
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, on Subtour.
So she made a video. Yeah, so she made a video called "Race is Real," and she basically went into this race realism stuff in it. Sort of. I mean, it's only like a 7-minute video, so you didn't need like. So you
She
do.
doesn't make terribly long content anyway. Usually.
No, she doesn't. And she's she's really young and she's new to all this stuff. So she puts out this video, and the skeptic community loses their collective shit over it because she was like one of them, and she makes. This is like the bridge. This is the bridge too far, though, and that's one of the things that I was talking to my wife about. I was like, they got all butthurt over her video, and the thing is, the only person who I think responded to it in a good way was Kraut, because he basically, well,
no bullshit did too.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I haven't seen the no bullshit response. But my point is, if someone puts out a video and their data is wrong, and you claim to be a skeptic, just correct the data. Just correct the data. But I don't think you should do is try to figure out why they did that, like what their intentions are. Oh, that they're accusing her of being a racist now because she made the video. But we don't know that. All we know is she took an interest in the topic, saw some content about it, sourced some things, and put it out there. And I can tell that it was a response. More than anything, she was responding to all of this, melanin is like the fucking IQ hormone or whatever, the chemical, and like the wash your ass and the we was kangs and the white people are cave, toilet bowl complexion motherfuckers and all of this. Well, you make this the thing. Those people are really saying fucked up shit, and she's responding to it, and maybe her data's not all right. But if it's wrong, then just correct it. But don't say you're just as bad as they are or you're a racist. That's not helpful. Help her see where she went wrong, because a lot of what she said is not wrong. Like, there are differences between the races in terms of, IQ averages. This is the truth, because there are differences between us in skin color, in height, in our athletic ability, in all this other shit. Why wouldn't it also affect our brains?
Maybe she was Kings.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think this was kind of Deer's issue with the whole community problem, because somebody presents an argument. It's the argument that should be addressed, not the person. And when you have a community, I mean, it kind of inevitably leads to groupthink.
Yes, or you get like this cliquish shit that happens where people basically break up into cliques. And I know it happens because I watched it happen. And this is my, this is why the after shows are private, but like as someone who was at VidCon, I saw the cliquish shit. It was happening. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of, and I'm with Tildir on this. Like the skeptic community is not particularly skeptical. Like they are but I'm serious though. Look,
no, I agree with you completely.
Were they using their skepticism to disprove that?
No, like a lot of the stuff that if you watch the majority of the videos that these people debunk, they're really low hanging fruit videos. Like it's queer kid stuff. I'm okay with criticizing them because I think that those tend to be pretty popular too. But don't tell me that like criticizing Ghazi Kodo or whatever his name is like some kind of like academic achievement. I mean, we're trying to like dig deeper. You know, we try to at HBR, we look at like academic papers, and we're like, okay, this
feminist argument.
Robust arguments, yeah. But like this is, even if this stuff is easy to debunk, which it is, it's the stuff in universities. Like this isn't, you know, Anita's video about Islamophobia being racism. This is stuff that the professors are passing on to their students. This is really dangerous. So, you know, I'll guess what ultimately the takeaway from this is that there's no you have to always be in danger of becoming the monster that you're fighting against, even if you are in the skeptic community, because there definitely is a kind of
tribalism occurs.
The tribalism in there. Yeah, there is. And the thing is, what
got me the most was that those same people attacked Rage hate it when people deny differences between males and females.
Right. Well, exactly. Like the sex realism is the same. It's the same. That's what I'm saying. But the thing is, though, here's something else that's going on that I'm bugged by, and I just want to point out. They were meeting. I don't care. Okay, so they were meeting with people that they debunk online at VidCon, which I don't have a problem with. I think that's good. They sat down and talked with ContraPoints and some of the feminists that were there, and Francesca Ramsey and shit like that. I'm okay with that. However, they've also started to issue apologies to them, which I already mentioned that I'm not a big fan of that, because we are not also holding the other side accountable. That's how you get like the situation with Karen and Liana K, where, Karen makes her big long video addressing Liana K's arguments and also makes an apology for attacking her person instead of attacking her arguments, which I think she makes very clear. And then Liana goes on this 40-minute rant about how not nice Karen was. And, it's really frustrating because it's like Liana's full of shit. And the only reason why people like her is that she's nice while she's full of shit. And that's why the niceness thing bugs the shit out of me, because it's not genuine. So, yeah. And I see this like happening, like where I think Armored Skeptic was doing a video where he was basically saying, well, maybe we could just like stop fighting and like meet in the middle somewhere. And I'm like, but when one person is right and one person is wrong, there's no middle. There's no middle there.
I think as Karen said in the ICMI at one of the speeches, she said, I think it was the Red Pill after Q&A, said, I'm not interested in finding a middle ground between what's right and what's wrong. And this is the position we should take.
Yeah,
absolutely. There shouldn't, that's just it. And that's the weird thing, is that a lot of these, the people on the skeptic side and people on the side that argue against them, they're getting to the point where they're like, well, let's just find a middle. And that's why you have Shu saying, well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's okay if people want to be like some other gender. And it's like, no, that's like there's either something is true or it's not true. And if something is open to interpretation, then yes, okay. But that's subjective. That's like, I can't make you like hamburgers if you don't like them. But a hamburger is a hamburger. Like there's no like, well, I don't think that's a hamburger. I think that's a chicken sandwich. Like, no, that's not the way this works. So
is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is a hot dog a sandwich? That's a good question.
It depends what the animal identified as. How the sandwich changes.
Anyway, I guess I should finish this article, but I had to get that off my chest.
One more paragraph.
Am I on the last paragraph?
We're so close.
I am. Okay. The end. Evergreen campus has become a place where identity politics takes precedent over every other aspect of social intercourse. Ew. It has become a place where it is acceptable for colleagues to levy personal attacks on colleagues in response to differences of opinion and even in response to calls for dialogue. It has become a place where it is acceptable to shout down those with whom you disagree. And it has become a place where the administration watches from the sidelines, apparently fearful of antagonizing anyone. But that is not what leadership is about. Leadership means treating all members of a community with respect and demanding that others do the same. It also means publicly holding... I'm sorry?
Respect is earned.
Yeah, respect is earned. It's not given.
I don't know.
I think people often conflate, and I get people fighting me about this all the time, where they say, you know, everybody deserves respect, and it's like, no, I think people should have the choice as to whether or not they want to be respectful. I have to allow assholes the freedom to be assholes. I think that that's just important to me. I mean,
Brian, here's the distinction though. There's respectful and being civil are two very different things.
yeah, for sure.
I think people deserve civility, but they don't deserve respect. They earn respect.
Yes.
But they
And you know what?
They deserve civility.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to get at. Like common courtesy or civility. Sure. I think that we all want that, but that's not respect. And the thing is too, a person who is being given respect does not get to define what respect is, because then they get to decide what the terms of the respect is, i.e. disrespecting me means disagreeing with me, as an example, which these people do all the time. They say, if you disagree with me, you're disrespecting me. That means you're denying my lived experience and you're not accepting my reality, which is a postmodern thing to do. Postmodernists. The goddamn son of a bitch. All right, so let's see, sideline. But that is not what leadership is about. Leadership means treating all members of a community with respect, civility, and demanding that others do the same. No, not demanding, you earn it. It also means publicly holding community members responsible for their behavior, absolutely. Finally, it means having and upholding a set of principles, even when doing so might be uncomfortable. Actually, especially when it might make you uncomfortable, because you demonstrate to other people what it means to be an adult when you hold your principles above your own personal preferences. That's like why there are superheroes that people like. Evergreen is not alone in the constellation of institutions of higher education facing these problems. Hell no. It is, however, a place that has allowed extremists to dominate and discussion. Wait, what? It is, however, a place that has allowed extremists to dominate and discussion to die. Okay, I get it now. Others will do well to learn from the mistakes made on this campus. Well, still not woke is all I'm saying to that.
I guess Magneto is right in there at the entrance of the college saying, "Welcome to die."
Yes, welcome to die.
I think it's the quintessons there behind all this.
Guilty or innocent.
Innocent.
In the comics, it was guilty.
And in the cartoon it was better then, because they would switch to the death head and say innocent, which what they say doesn't matter. It's what face is saying it.
Yeah. And it did matter anyway, because they always end up at the shark cup.
They always end up killing everybody. You're talk about a bored race of robots. They were so bored that they were just executing people because they didn't have shit to do.
Yep. Poor Kranix. Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Poor Kranix. Oh. He was the last of his race.
He was.
And they just laughed at him.
Anyway, so that's basically it for that article. Unless anybody has any final thoughts on that, I guess I'll just go ahead and end the show. I can hit the button on my end. Mike, are you still awake? We may have lost him.
Well, it's the 4th of July, and Brits hate this day.
Yeah.
Do they? I don't know that. That's
I don't
true,
think they
though.
do.
Happy National Treason Day or something.
I think they got over it. It's been a while.
Yeah, the wounds have healed, I think, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
I mean, we're like.
Well, Vicksburg fell. Vicksburg fell on this day, and it took 80 years before they celebrate Independence Day ever again.
I mean, we're one of the countries that aren't completely fucked up that used to be part of the British Empire. So.
Yep.
Because Canada's gone to shit, India's pretty shit.
Well, they're still part of it.
In terms of like actual governance,
I would have said Australia is doing well, but they got problems.
Yeah. They're part of the Commonwealth. I'm talking about like when the British actually.
You mean like countries that separated from the?
Yeah,
like
they're
Hong
still
Kong,
Commonwealth, but they're not. But they're like the British have no governance over the countries. Anymore.
Hong Kong is doing good for now.
What?
Hong Kong is doing good for now.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
But Hong Kong isn't Hong Kong free from British rule.
I said the US is one of the
until they were doing awesome until 1997 when they joined China, and then China has been trying to get to force their awesome democratic system on Hong Kong. They always get thousands of people complaining.
It's too bad. Also, Hong Kong was making great movies back then, and then it started making shit. So I think that's a sign.
Well, look how the
Kung Fu
Indian
movies were better
subcontinent
when Hong Kong was
is
free.
doing.
Anyway, all right. Well,
the British rule.
I guess we'll wrap up the show. I'm gonna go off and celebrate my 4th of July. I'll hit the button, Mike, so you don't have to.
Good.
And I guess thanks for coming on the after show. And we have more to come very, very